how quickly can you chop a pint?
Look, I always say to new lads to rugby is find a position in a club and make yourself the best at it, and that usually is a position that I'm best at. So yeah, to you guys.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Much Ado About Rugby, your weekly podcast where we chat about everything rugby. Today, we've got another great episode of Rugby Around the World. We're going to be talking to our guest Tom. He's going to tell us a bit about Chinese rugby, Hong Kong rugby, tell us some great rugby touring stories as well. So it should be a good laugh. So if you enjoy, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps us out and you'll never miss an episode. So yeah, let's get into it.
Welcome, Tom. It's a pleasure to have you on. Tom is currently living in Hong Kong. He's also had experience playing in Shanghai and all around China for 3 years previously, and also in the top division of German rugby. If you want to see more of Tom's rugby experiences, maybe in a bit more detail, he does have a YouTube channel. It's called Don't Tell Tiffany. So I'm pretty sure you got about 5K views on some of your videos, which is...
Yeah, but I cheated a little bit. I tried a little bit of advertising, see how it goes. It's a travel video which masquerades with the occasional rugby here and there, but like be a niche tours, but you've got to be very careful what you're filming.
Exactly, yeah, I can imagine on tour and stuff. Obviously can't go without giving a shout out to your local club in England, Basildon. Been told before not to call it Basildon, which you've had a bit of a predicament with before when someone accidentally typed in the wrong address and went to Basildon. Quite interesting. I guess the first port of call would be to ask you, being a big tourer and being with your club currently, Valley RFC, it looks very interesting out there. I'm sure we'll touch on that later. But the first port of call would be to ask you, how quickly can you chop a pint? Now we obviously asked you to bring a beer.
Well, it's a hack job, is it? It's a hack job. Well, look, I always say to new lads to rugby is find a position in a club and make yourself the best at it, and that usually is a position that I'm best at. So yeah, pretty
really good. That is a big claim. Can you please prove it, possibly?
You'll have to give me a second. I'll get a glass and put this in. Does it have to be I'm on a 330ml here, so is that all right, or do we need a...
No, that's fine. It's 6:30 for you, so
this is a nice sour beer as well. Let me see if I've got something a bit shit in my fridge.
It just opens up the logo.
pulling it out of Valley RFC's logo. Lovely. So what is it that you're drinking?
So this is Black Kite Brewery. It's a local Hong Kong brewery, and it's a IPA, 5.7.
5.7. That's quite strong. Well, drink and be merry, Tom. Go for it.
Okay, here's to you guys.
Oh my god! Impressive stuff. Fair play.
He enveloped that.
That was, I think, bit slow probably. But I could probably do a couple of shots.
A reputation when I left Basildon to go on my travels. So they brought me out. They heard from my uni that I was known for doing a bottle of wine with a straw. So I had to do a bottle of wine. Yeah. Bottle of red wine with 5 sambucas, and I think we got it under a minute. So
that is horrendous. I bet the next morning, I reckon, must have been a bit painful, unless you're an absolute superhuman and just power through.
Well, there's only one way to get over a hangover, isn't there? So.
Star again.
So I guess let's jump into something a little bit more rugby, and we can obviously come back to your touring excursions later on. But actually, I'm going to start with an interesting fact. So you've played in China for 3 years, and for a club in Shanghai specifically. What was the club called? Sorry.
The name is quite interesting. It used to be Hairy Crabs, because that's what Shanghai apparently is famous for. And then there was a split. So there's 2 clubs in Shanghai, and I played for Shanghai Dragons, or Shanghai Rugby Football Club. There's lots of like political name changing
Yeah,
stuff, as you can imagine.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So actually, we when we were doing a bit of research for the episode, obviously rugby in China isn't something that you hear that much about, and it's quite. I think that's why we wanted to get you on in particular, because when you sent us your video, you said China, and we were like, wow, how interesting. And so after doing a bit of research, we found out that China actually has the joint biggest rugby fan base in the world. 30 million people follow rugby in China, and that's alongside the United States, which will be our next Rugby Around the World episode. So something to look forward to to there. But I guess what we really want to know is who plays rugby in China. So obviously we know you do your English. Is it mainly expats? Are there big Chinese following in essence, or who is it that plays?
It's interesting. It's a mix, and certainly the difference between Shanghai and Hong Kong is Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere. So there's a lot more Northern Hemisphere in Shanghai and more Southern Hemisphere here. But it's like it's a setup which really dictates who you play with and how you play with. So I don't know the ins and outs, but I think there is like a local league for Chinese players. That's geared more towards sevens and tens, because that's what China's throwing money at, because they want Olympic success. And traditionally, tens has been the biggest game in Asia. And then we are put into 4 conferences. So you're Northeast, South, and West. So in our conference, we had another Shanghai team, Dolphins, team about an hour away, which was our closest neighbor in Suzhou and I think Nanjing. And yeah, that's actually typical kind of expat guys. So, people from England, France. We had a couple of Saffers in there. But it's cool as well because you get some African lads coming over. So we've had a couple of guys from Zimbabwe. And you get to see, we had a really good player from Croatia, of all places. So you just get people kind of drifting in. It's usually they come out with a job and then they kind of look for a way to keep fit. We get a lot of we do have a lot of kind of Asian players as well. There's a Japanese league, but the Japanese, as they do across the world, they prefer to kind of play in their own leagues rather than come into like an international setup, which I guess makes sense because they speak Japanese and it's easier for them. And then so we get a lot of kind of mixed race people who kind of find their way in, and then we get like new Asian people. But the great thing about Shanghai, especially when I was there over 3 years, was the growth of the ladies' game. So in 2007, that's almost 10 years, more than 10 years ago, 2017, we probably had a ladies' team of maybe. Well, we struggled to get a 10 side together. So there was a wider squad, but to get a 10 side together was not always good. But by leaving, we were having like 20, 30 women up to training. We did mixed training and then, split. And a lot of that are kind of like local Shanghainese girls, but also expats. So it was a really good mix in there. But mainly Northern Hemisphere. And then here it's been a little bit difficult in Hong Kong because with the Southern Hemisphere lads, they all have their own like culture and language and way of talking, and it's really hard to get like in with. What's that group's called? The Tekka and that's like, I think I know what Tekka is, but then some of the stuff they were saying in that group, I really had to learn like the language and stuff. Like when the boys are calling it "Hey, oos," like, is that good? Is that bad? I don't know.
Almost as difficult as learning Chinese, sounds like.
Yeah, I won't go quite that far, but yeah, nearly there. Yeah.
For the people who are like Chinese players, how do they actually get into rugby? Because obviously, like the expats, they probably like played in their country when they're growing up or whatever, like yourself. But what about the Chinese people? Is it like big in schools, or is it just like they have a following, like they just follow the professional sport and then just like decide to pick it up themselves? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, it's interesting. So there's 2 levels. So for the elite level, usually what happens is, obviously China's got a huge Olympics program, and so kind of the rejects of all the other Olympic sports, but are on these kind of Olympic, I don't know, what do they call them in America, where they play like sport for money at the university. The scholarships, like they're on these Olympic scholarships or sports scholarships, but they don't quite make the grade for their original sport, like maybe the more traditional Olympic sports. So they get put down into rugby and have a go at this. So one of our favorite teams to play actually was a Shanghai University of Sport, and these guys are built, they're rapid, they're fit, but they don't necessarily know how to play rugby. And we're fat, not fit, but we know how to throw a ball around. So we're made for a really good matchup. So we'd like destroy them at the set piece, but as soon as the game broke apart, like they would just run through us. So that's at your elite level. And then again, it kind of goes into the Chinese culture. Like they have a really weird relationship with foreigners, especially in Shanghai, where kind of like hanging around with foreigners is kind of equally part like sophisticated and you want to be seen, but also like you don't want those guys like coming over to your country and they're also like sick on the streets and everything like that. So you get a lot of lads who kind of like you just meet out on a night out and they're just like the one thing I've learned about the local Chinese people who are great is how enthusiastic they are. And they're just like, if they do something, they're just going to throw themselves into it. So we get a load of lads just coming up, just loving the social atmosphere of it, enjoying going for beers. And they just feel, you know, when you go to training for a new club for the first time and you play like 3 times worse because you're second guessing yourself. These lads are just throwing them like head first into a tackle and they've never been trained to change tackle before. So they're brilliant, yeah. But a lot of it is word of mouth. So just going out, with the boys, and we're just trying, recruit in nightclubs. Oh, he looks a bit strong. All right, get him down to training.
What's the actual rugby culture like in comparison to like England, for example, over in like Shanghai?
It's great. So it's the great thing about rugby abroad is that you can walk into any club and you know the type of people there. So you've got like a ready-made family, which in a place like Shanghai, where you're very much in a minority of people who kind of speak like you, think like you, which is the reason why you go, but also it can be hard. So when you go to a rugby club and you've got that, it just gives that kind of base that you need. And most people, when they're expats, they do that from work. But obviously, if you're a rugby lad, you don't really want to be going out on a night out with work and having everyone tell stories the next week. So with a rugby club, it's a lot safer. It is very close knit, very family orientated, and very much, we were a high achieving club, but it was always about supporting each other first and being with each other first. And then there's a wider culture as well. So we have like a WeChat, which is like Chinese version of WhatsApp. We have a WeChat group for all the lads in all the teams who kind of want to get involved with a bit of banter. And you can imagine that's kind of loose and fast. So when we come together for these big tours or we go to these tournaments, you just meeting mates that you just met on nights out, and you're just seeing like the same characters. So this one guy, Dermot, who for some reason in Chinese rugby tournaments, they always have cheerleaders to like these local poor girls made to dance in front of like a hooligan crowd of expat rugby players. And there's a guy called Dermot who just I think he brought his own pom-poms one point, just goes in and strips off and starts dancing with them. So you get to know like the faces and everything, and you get to see them like every couple of months. So the culture is amazing. It's really, really like vibrant and gone.
Is it quite like like everyone involved in the rugby scene, like in your area?
Well, the area is the whole of China. So so like one of the lads that we like to look forward to started playing in Shanghai. He's a really good player. He's one of the islanders, and now he's in Chengdu, which is an 8-hour flight from Shanghai. So yeah, it's crazy because on a Friday, right, we're playing a semi-final against Chengdu. All right, so we're going to get him on Friday night, 8-hour flight over to Chengdu. We're going to play a game of rugby on a pitch which hasn't seen any action on it in 3 years, picking up stones and stuff from the at the start of it. And then we're going to go on a night out with a lash. And because you're doing these distances, the teams kind of stick together. So, you do all the drinking challenges and everything, and you eat together, and then you go out. And then, you're catching up in this kind of like place on the other side of the continent. And then 3 months later, you go to a place like Xiamen, which is a big tens tournament. and everybody from all over China is back in. So it's almost like, it's kind of a uni feel, you know, like almost like a fraternity, like everyone just comes back and you're seeing the guys who you don't see every day. And it just gets loose.
So do you guys play? So do you guys play tens as well at your club? So what's like the ten scene like? You said like it's massive in Asia, obviously in the UK, it's very rarely spoken about. It's almost exclusively 15s or 7s. So what is the 10 scene? Is that like the same teams that play 15s also play 10s, or they're literally just solely 10s clubs and they're 10s separate league? Or
Yeah, well, tens is great because it's just a little bit more accessible for maybe they tier the cities in China. So Shanghai would be like a tier 1 city, and this is what the Chinese government does to rate them. So if you're in like a tier 3 city, it can be quite hard to get like a full 15 squad available. So usually what happens is like in the start of the season, so August to Christmas, you have your 15s competitions. And that's a conference system I talked about. And then from there's a winter break, and then maybe from February, March, you then get the tens tournaments going. And the tens tournaments, and I was a bit like you guys. I was like, I'm here to play 15s. What's this tens bullshit about? The tens tournaments are great because that's where all the teams come together. So you've got like 12 teams come in together, and you go like Beijing, Xiamen is a big one, Shanghai, there's a Guangdong tens, and it's like almost like a circuit. Wuhan have a tens, played at Wuhan tens. Everyone know that city now. That'd be like a tier 3 city. Yiwu is the soft furnishings textile capital of the world. That has a tens tournament. So you're playing in these really odd places, but it's great. It's great because you just like get let loose with 8, 9, 10 different teams on a night out, and yeah, it's just competitions, and you play like 4 or 5 games during the day, and then there won't be another tens tournament for maybe another couple of weeks. So you're doing some training and stuff like that, and then you go there, and then it all culminates at Xiamen. So Xiamen is the big party tens tournament that everybody loves, and because we're the most successful team in Shanghai, we're also the most hated team in Shanghai. Manchester United as well.
That tends to be the way that it goes, isn't it? It's like
it is,
England are the most successful Northern Hemisphere side, so everyone hates England, you know.
That's exactly it. We're the England of and the success. So we go to Xiamen, right, and all the teams have been knocked out, quite a few of them by us. And there's probably about 1,000 people watching you, like guys who've been knocked out of the tournament by midday. It's now 6 or 7 o'clock. The sun's going down. Maybe 1,000 people pissed up, and they're all just chanting one thing: "Fuck Shanghai!" Fuck Shanghai. And then we lost the final.
Must feel pretty good if you win.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the only tournament I haven't won with the team. So we've got to the final twice in a year. So when the restrictions open up, the first thing I'll be doing is going to Xiamen to try and get the win. That's the only cup which has eluded me in the 3 years that I was playing for Shanghai. So it's bitter.
But can you guys not play at the moment? Because I thought it was like really COVID wise in Shanghai.
No,
I know you're in Hong Kong, aren't you? Yeah, of course.
Yeah. It'd be a little bit of a commute for me to go over there and play, but things in Shanghai are almost. I mean, things pop up, and then I think the city shuts down for a day or so, but it's pretty much back to normal. I don't know if the rugby started, but I think the guys are training, and certainly during the time last year, what we just did is like little ripper tag tournaments. The great thing about Shanghai is we have 2, maybe 3-ish like sets of teams that we can get together. So even with our biggest rivals, who we supposedly absolutely hate, and they absolutely hate us, we broke that ice, and had some little touch and pass tournaments going on, which was another great way to make friends in the city, to be honest.
Yeah, it sounds like one massive fun drinking community, basically.
That's essentially it's just like a support system for rogues and rascals. And
yeah. Whereas at a club in England, you might have so many more people, and because you don't have, I guess, that like completely separate Chinese community who aren't that interested in the rugby surrounding you, it's so much easier just to stay in your club in England.
Yeah.
So it's almost sounds way nicer that everyone can just kind of have a beer after the game as a group of 1,000 people and just go, like speak to random people after the game. That's what sounds like the best aspect of it from what you've said just now.
And everyone's in the same boat, so everyone's like really nice and friendly. There's very little ego in it, which is great. And that's the thing with community rugby back home. Like when I play for my home team, I love getting pissed up with the boys, but you're also I'm playing for the same club that my dad played for, his dad played for, my brothers played for. So if you get if you get a bit stupid, those reputations kind of affect the people like you love around you as well. But you don't have that in China. If you're stupid, you've just got yourself to worry about. So the wheels come off a little bit.
Yeah. And I guess, Max, and you actually told me to write this question down. I think it's a really good question, actually, because it actually refers a bit more deeply to the rugby rather than the social aspect of it. And it's about coaching. So obviously, every team has a coach. What's the coaching like? Who coaches? Is it Chinese? Is it an expat? What's the coaching scene like?
In Shanghai, in China.
Yeah.
So that is our biggest problem, and we went for about a year without a coach, and it was a tough time, and it's just about the lads, taking on a bit of extra responsibility. We do get decent players in China. So up in Beijing, there's an ex-Gloucester number 8 who came over on some kind of good work thing. So it's great to play against a guy like that. We've had in our team a guy who came up through I can't remember which academy it was, but he came up through academy and played, and he was really good guy. And then we've got some really good players who know what they're on about. And then occasionally you can get some really good coaches. So we had like some South African old, really scary guy when I first joined, and he had to leave because of the commute. He was like traveling 2 hours in just to get the training. And then we had a big signing where we managed to nab a famous South African tens player, as famous as South African tens players gets. He'd captained the tens, so we were really looking forward to him, but that doesn't work out, as sometimes it doesn't. But our best coach was actually just he's not a local guy, but somebody who was like part of the club, and I don't think he's coached anywhere in particular, but he was just really good because he was like kind of rooted in the club. And he's a guy called Simon. Everyone's like, oh, hopefully we can get Simon back, but he's moved to Shenzhen now. And a lot of the smaller clubs is really just like so the Changzhou Giants are pretty much, as far as I'm aware, run by a guy called Simon who works at a school who was just missing rugby. So he just started pestering people like, let's play rugby. And when the kids turned 18 and wanted to stay around, got them. So you often get clubs where there's like a chairman or a player who's like an absolute center of that squad who holds them together. So it's pretty poachy, not in the way that teams poach coaches off each other, but if you're always looking to see if someone's arriving into the city, or if someone's arriving, especially like in a school. So there's a lot of big international schools who will bring in a coach who's got some kind of pedigree because it looks great with the parents, and then it's like seeing if you can get them down. So yeah, it can create a lot of instability. It's the main problem. You're always looking for a coach, but at the end of the day, if it comes down to the lads to get things going, it comes down to the lads to get things going.
Yeah, no, I've kind of had that before as well, because I played some social rugby at uni, and obviously we didn't have a coach at all for the 3 years that I was there. So if it was almost like the captain had to coach. I mean, I didn't organize coaching sessions, but it was like on the day, you're kind of like, right, everyone, high knees out to the 22 and back.
Wait, Ed, you were the captain?
I was, captain. Put myself at fly half as well when I'm actually the worst 10 in the world. I never passed them. But yeah, speaking about the UK and comparing it to China, what kind of standard would you compare Chinese rugby to in the UK and also in Hong Kong, where you are now playing for Valley, obviously? What kind of standard are both of them in comparison?
Okay, so Baildon play in, well, we just got promoted to Yorkshire 2, so we kind of, I think that's like tier 8 of rugby.
Yeah.
So for me, going to Baildon to Germany was not much of a step up, really. And I mean, we were very bad. When you say we played in Division 1, we played one season in Division 1 and then we got relegated back down. We were more of a Division 2 side.
Well, you still played in Division 1.
Yeah. And then so going to Shanghai was a step up for me, for sure, because we played with some really, really good players. So my mate Matt, he represented China, and he was like the talisman of our team. But we just played. We've got a really good Islander, probably the nicest guy in the universe, called Sam Simona. Play a really good standard of rugby. And the problem in Shanghai is it's patchy. So you might have like this centre who could, play maybe national, and outside him is another centre who's kind of like just been drafted in. And that's for us is like one of the best teams. So like I said, like Beijing have this guy who used to play for Gloucester, who's maybe 40 but still packs a punch. And there's some really good players. It gets a little bit worse, like as you get usually down the tier system. So there are teams that we can like run through. So the consistency is not there. But I would say Shanghai at our peak would be playing
Premiership.
Premier would be maybe somewhere between like regional and not national, but like we call it North as our league, but that semi league.
Yeah.
Maybe there, or top regional. And then I came to Hong Kong, and so to also toot my own horn. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Not the only captain here. So they gave me the captaincy of the second teams. So for me to break into the first team here is going to be a bigger step up for me going from Baildon to Shanghai, because here you've got to be super fit, and I'm 31 years old and I like my beer. But I have enough character or whatever to, comfortably come into the second team and then to award me the honour of captaincy. So here I would say, like in Hong Kong, I mean, the players I'm playing with here is insane. So we've got a number of we've got a guy called Sean Bennett, I better get his last name right, he played for a Welsh team. I think it was Scarlet, something like that, and then Northampton, and he was playing in European Cup. We've got a couple of South African Premiership players, one of whom, Martin Muller, was then picked for the Barbarians. So he went on tour with the Barbarians to Argentina. And he's a second row as well, so it's quite scary when he's telling me that I know nothing in lineouts and then proving to me that I know nothing in lineouts. About lineouts, but now I know nothing. And then we've got like a couple of guys who, were playing in Meter Cup. There's a guy who played for the New Zealand under-20s. So the standard here is like,
oh my days.
Sounds really good, to be fair. Like,
yeah,
comparing to Shanghai, it's a big step up.
It's huge. Yeah, it's huge. And then the second team is really funny because you know what the second team culture is always, right?
Yeah.
But also it's with really good players. So again, like our second team would probably beat Shanghai, but I think it'd be a decent match. And yeah, it's just insane. And you come in as I've been playing rugby since 4 years old. I'm 31-year-old now. I don't think, old dog, don't think there's much I can learn. And I come here and I'm like looking at all these boys around me going, yes, sir. Okay, sir. And like forgetting how to pass because I'm worried I'm going to do it wrong and stuff. So yeah, it's just mental. It's for a young lad from Yorkshire coming and playing with these guys who've got all these honours behind them. It's great, and it's a high standard.
So
Yeah.
does Hong Kong have its own like setup in itself compared where like separate of China?
Yeah. So yeah, Hong Kong. Again, there's different leagues bopping around Hong Kong, but the one, I guess, with the kind of to take note of is more of the expat league. I don't know if there's a local league because I haven't been here long enough, but again, I've seen Japanese guys doing their own little thing, but that's just very casual rugby. But the money is with with the Hong Kong Rugby Union, who then set up the clubs. So it kind of works top down here rather than bottom up like it does in England, I think. And usually what happens is the big event here is the Hong Kong Sevens, and that finances, I think, pretty much the season. So it's going to be interesting over the next 2 years what happens because the Hong Kong Sevens haven't been able to go ahead. And then there's, I think there's either 6 or 8 teams. So there's Hong Kong Football Club, which is the big team with great grounds. And someone once described it to me as the last bastion of colonialism. And it really is. Like, you go in there and there's like a library and wood paneled everything. And the changing rooms are amazing. It's like going into a high-paying sauna or something. And then there's us, which are traditionally the other big team we've won the championship, I think, the most. And then there's some teams which have been created top down, and then there's other teams which almost like London. So we have like a HK Scottish team. I think there's a team which came out of the police force, which I think now might be called Tigers, Kowloon Bay, who, and all these guys have they're just pulling in with the money that's swirling around, these like players who are leaving contracts in England. So I know a guy I used to go to school with, he was playing for Gloucester, and he was kind of coming to the end of a career, and he had that decision to make about what he's going to do. So he came out here on a money contract, I think with a job actually, and ended up coaching at Kowloon. So there's a bit of money going around to pull these players in, but also there's a good selection of players who, like me, who just kind of turn up and at the twilight of their rugby career are still having to start at the bottom again and learn everything about rugby.
Well, you're not as old as Alan Wynne-Jones yet, so there's got a few more years in you.
Yeah, I
and
think
it's
my hair's doing a little bit better as well.
I think it's interesting because Maxon and I have actually played in Hong Kong. We went on rugby tour when we were 15, 16, and we played. I can't remember who it was, but they were mostly Chinese.
We played at Kowloon, I think.
Hong Kong.
They have like a
pristine 4G pitch, which was very, very strange. I mean, we were playing second team and we completely ran over them. So I don't know what kind of attitude we came in here thinking the standard was in Hong Kong, but no, I think we put about 40 points on them. I think they scored 1.
I think we played like their like age group team. There must be like an under 18s team. I don't know whether it's Kowloon. I think it might have been just like the Hong Kong team or something. I don't really know.
I think rugby is much more ingrained in like the city of Hong Kong. Like here, you will have schools that local kids will go to and they will play rugby. So as much as Shanghai is very mixed, and that's one of the things that we love about it is how diverse it is still like almost an expat enclave, and it's traditionally like Northern Hemisphere players. But here, you've just got like every shade of person you can ever imagine playing, and I think there are more Asians, more mixed race Asian and Caucasian people playing. And it's just very, very diverse, and huge amounts of South African, New Zealand boys, a couple of Aussies.
Yeah.
What do you think is the main reason for why like Hong Kong and China are not like at the top, like with such a big fan base? Like, why are they not pushing? Like there's countries like Japan which are close by, like which have a much smaller fan base, but are doing much better. So like, why do you think like Hong Kong and China aren't up there, even though they're like obviously such a great sporting like nation in general?
Yeah, well, Hong Kong are there and they've been building. Like they I think qualified for the sevens for a few years now, and then I think they were one match away from going to the World Cup. Yeah, they were there in the repechage. So that's a really bad timing about COVID, because Hong Kong are kind of
Knocking on
pressing
the
the
door.
door to get through. China, it comes down to politics. So they made I think one of the biggest deals in rugby there was a money man who was willing to kind of like totally finance the whole Chinese program, especially with the tens and the sevens. And then there was a falling out with the government, and then obviously that has repercussions in a place like China. So that was a big setback for China. Very similar to the German situation. If you know about that, there was a big guy there, and he fell out with the German Union League, and that's why Germany, who were knocking on the door of the World Cup, weren't for 8 years until this year. So Hong Kong are there. China will be there in the next Olympics. I don't think they'll be quite challenging Fiji or England or anything like that, but I think that I think the women have now qualified for the sevens series, and I think the men's won't be far behind. But it's about rugby, isn't it? Rugby, to be good at rugby is not just being good at sport, but there's a culture behind it that you have to understand and you have to know and you have to build. And you can't just take you can't do a cool runnings and just take a sprinter and put them in bobsleigh. So it's a slow build. And it's just a shame that Hong Kong have been doing that and investing their money really well. And then they're going to be set back by not being able to have the sevens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. To be fair, like I think if they keep building, then they'll eventually get up there with the top teams. But yeah, no, it sounds like with all the like expats, especially like it's like helping build that culture, which like bringing it from other nations, which is really good.
Do you think it reaches a point though where you have to stop like relying on expats in order to reach that top level? I don't know about. I'm thinking more so about Hong Kong. Yeah,
kind of thing.
Because I don't know. I'm thinking more about Hong Kong, because like I don't know whether like is there a lot of players coming through the player pathways, or is it very much so? Okay, let's look for the next expat to be the star of Valley. Like, do you think if the culture is like that, do you think it needs to change for them to really like hit that top level and create sort of more of a rugby culture that's within Hong Kong per se?
Yeah, I think from the short time I've been here, I've picked up on those kind of elements, and I think that's what they were trying to move towards. Like there are residency rules here to play for Hong Kong. I mean, I think they're pretty loose, but you do have to do it. So out of our Hong Kong players, I know one of our guys who plays for the national team. He's from South Africa, but he's been here a while. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And the great thing is that we do have a lot of Hong Kong born players. Even in the Premiership, we have to have a certain amount of Hong Kong born or Hong Kong resident. I'm not quite sure how it works, which one it is, play on field or in the squad. Which is quite funny because occasionally you get a team sheet just with like one banged in who's like a third or second team player. But yeah, so there are rules for the Premiership as well. So you can't just like splash the cash and bring in or loads of these players. So they're trying to protect it, but it's a hard balancing act that where you're trying to get international success and recognition, sorry, but on the same time kind of protect your home-based players. The other thing about Hong Kong is that it's a very transitory city. So you've got people who grew up here going off to uni in America or England, Australia, and maybe not coming back. So it's not like England where you can have that kind of more static player pathway and get the guys through the academy. So there's definitely challenges for the union.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that was a really good in-depth just chat about Chinese and Hong Kong rugby, to be honest. So I guess that kind of sums up
One final question.
everything about Chinese and Hong Kong rugby. But
Just
now
hope
we
I
want
haven't
to.
got it wrong and offended anybody.
No, I'm sure you haven't. No, you've been really
Only been
honest.
here a couple of months. So.
It sounds like, you know, there is a rugby culture, although some people might not see it ever. You go China and rugby, they just don't quite seem to match in people's heads. You know, when we heard about it, we were like, "Oh, crikey, what? But no, here we are talking about it. So thank you so much for that. I guess before we go, we want to talk a bit about your experiences of touring and any stories you might have from that aspect of it. Obviously, we've spoken about the social side. So, are there any stories you could possibly share with us without going into too much? You know,
This is a loaded
gruesome
question. Is there
detail?
anything you have in mind, or I know you boys have been doing your research.
I don't know. You tell us. You tell us.
We'll start off with what's the like your best like rugby moment like with like any of the clubs that you've been touring with?
Yeah. So for two. I've got an emotional one where my dad passed away, and so I went home for the funeral and everything, and played a cup game with my home team who I hadn't played for 3-4 years. I managed to get the last try in like the 79th minute. And then when my first game for Shanghai back, scored in the exactly same way, in the exact same like area of the pitch, in almost the same minute. So that was quite emotional. So with Shanghai, our big tournament that we revolve around is the Hong Kong Tens. And the Hong Kong Tens goes the same weekend as the Hong Kong Sevens. It's obviously not as big as the international Hong Kong Sevens that everyone knows about, but it's really they promote themselves as the world's best tens tournament, and you get some stellar players going there. So it's amazing. And we, for some reason, we have a relationship. I think it's like the Hong Kong Union want to be doing like grassroots stuff with the mainland. So they, as like the best team in the mainland, they bring us over and we get smashed like 60-70 nil in a 10-minute match by these professional players who haven't picked up an international contract. So Hong Kong Football Club, and that's how good this tournament is. So Hong Kong Football Club, who's one of the best Premiership players in Hong Kong, they're usually in the bottom half of the pack at Hong Kong Tens against these touring teams. So the standard that's probably the highest standard of rugby I'll ever play. But they brought in Alessandro Tuilagi, the big.
Oh my days!
Yeah, the big winger. He played for Leicester, I think.
Yeah.
It was some kind of truck or something that they called him, or destroyer. So yeah, got the ball mid pitch and looked up, and you know what the Tuilagis do? You've seen them, and they line someone up, don't they? And they kind of cock the shoulder. And I looked
And bring it through.
Yeah, I saw this shoulder cock, and I didn't do anything, but I'm going to claim I did a lot. He must have missed because he went for me and he kind of glanced off me. I pushed through him and made 10 yards. So the fact that I was being able to play against Alessandro Tuilagi and break his tackle.
You bounced Alessandro Tuilagi.
You bounced him. You absolutely destroyed him.
Yeah, I can send you the Instagram footage. It's
hey, there's a video. There's a video.
There's a video, yeah.
Oh,
yeah. I can play it on my phone now. I don't know if that will do.
No, send it over and we'll edit it in at the end.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it's great because the commentator as well is saying that's Tommy Peel, big ball carrier for Shanghai. So I obviously went back to work, right? And I show do you know who Alessandro Tuilagi? You heard of the Tuilagis, right? These guys at work. I was like, watch this. And so all the way, there's one mate in particular who I worked with. Every time he saw me in the corridor, I was like, that's Tommy Peel, big ball carrier. So yeah, I can't talk about it. I nearly retired after that one. Even though we lost like 30, 40 nil, it came off that pitch with a beaming wide smile.
And yeah, on your YouTube channel, obviously, I've watched a little bit of your touring escapades.
Yeah.
And one of them was titled about something that you ate on the tour.
I ate.
Yeah,
Donkey, I think it was.
you ate donkey.
Yeah. I was thinking you were going to go to when we went to Qingdao and they got arrested, but yeah, no.
I don't think I saw that bit. Tell us that. That sounds way better.
Yeah, tell us that.
Well, I can highly recommend Donkey, and the Donkey Burger is everything everything that is not that you think about. It's very lean, very gamey, very nice. So if you get a chance to have Donkey, have some. Yeah, Qingdao. So Qingdao is the first tournament. It's a fives tournament on the beach, and Qingdao was the German kind of enclave back in the colonial times. So there's big beer towns where they make Qingdao, which is the Chinese beer. And it's great weekend. You go up there, play fives, the girls tournament going at the same time. And so we've been going there a few years. And then so me and my friend landed and we were getting a late Friday night flight, and most of the boys had taken Friday off and gone early and got pissed up and were now in a club. So we're like, should we go to the Airbnb? And thought, we'll just go straight to the club. This is a long story, by the way. So if you want me to do the short one, I can.
Go. Make it as long as possible.
Yeah.
All the details.
So I mean, really, I should just market this by saying go see the YouTube channel, right?
Yeah, probably.
So we get to the club, and there's this guy with like small man syndrome, crisp white shirt, kind of necklace kind of thing, probably some very expensive wax in his hair. He was mouthing off at the DJ. He was clearly not happy, and this is like so there's a bar on the top and then there's a basement, and so there's probably like 25, 30 Western or expat guys and like a handful of Chinese locals. And this is the kind of night out we always have. And it's great because we love Chinese locals. They're great to party with. They love beer. They're really friendly, really good people. But there's this one guy who was clearly just being a bit of a dick in this like very dingy club. He was with a girl. And one of my friends is probably the world's only rugby / swing dancer, and his swing dancing is pretty good, and he's known for picking a few girls up. Even he's married, but platonically, and swinging them around the dance floor, and this brings more girls for the lads, and it's open days then. The more drunk he gets, the worse his swing dancing and his balance gets. So he was dancing with this girl, he was flying around. Meanwhile, this guy was looking very jealous and getting very angry. And then he keeps bumping into him with his girl, and then things kick off. So this guy looks around and sees, like, I guess to him, 30 very big, very similar looking people, and decides not just to lamp our mate, but to sucker punch him in the back of the head in the middle of the circle of white guys dancing around him. So a fight happens. He's got like two mates. The rugby guys grab him, and then kind of
pin him, and then you're just there. Absolutely.
I'm not a fighter, but I just wanted to restrain him, right? So holding him to the floor. Meanwhile, one of my other mates, he's a 6'4" guy, is trying to hold his mates back. My other mate, who's also a tall guy, gets put another sucker punch to the back of his head from who knows where. And then
punches flying everywhere. It was probably one of your blokes fighting him. While you've got the guy literally on the grim club floor, like facing it.
And it's a predicament as well, because I'm holding this guy and he's fighting his hardest to get up. So I give him a little, you're welcome across the face, and subdue him. And then the bouncers come, and this was the funniest thing, because like these bouncers were about 5'5", 5'6", and there was about 6 of them, and there was like trying to break up a fight between like 26-foot tall guys. So they grab me and him. They start taking him away. I've worked in bars all my life, so I know, like, if as soon as a bouncer comes, like, stand up, put your hands behind your back, act like nothing's happening, and don't like keep on trying to go the fight, because it's only going to go one way. So I'm like, oh, sorry guys, yeah, no, I was just holding him, doing all that, trying to be nice to them. And they try and take me away, and then suddenly like 30 rugby lads say, no, you're not taking him. and like the bouncers came back off. I was like, that's the first time I've ever seen bouncers back off. I was saying, and that's only going to end up one way as well. So I said, no, I'll come with you. And the manager of the bar was there. He was like, can you guys just shake hands? Like, yeah, happy to do that. So we go into the foyer and we shake hands, and this guy just kicks off again and just like starts trying to get at me. And I turned to the bar guy. I was like, look, this is the kind of guy he is. I'm not angry. I'm not mad. I'm happy to leave. Happy to take the boys. I'm sorry for the disturbance. He's like, no, come in. I understand what you're doing. And he gives me 6 free Corona. I'm thinking, happy days.
The
I'm going to get a
coronavirus.
job in this place. So we share the Coronas, smash a few Coronas down. Everyone's kind of forgotten about it. 20 minutes goes by, and then it would be our scrum half, our smallest guy, comes in. His face is looking ashen, and he's going, guys, we need to go. Oh, what do you mean we're going to need to go? We're going to have to fight our way out of here. So like images of like gangs of Chinese like triads are going through our brain. But this guy's got a friend in the police. So he's gone out, he's got kicked out, and he's rang his mate in the police, and the police are outside now. And when the Chinese police arrive, they really arrive. So we're not talking like one car, we're talking van, 5-6 cars, maybe 20, 30 people there. You know, you can imagine the story that's been told to them, like there's a riot going on or something. So the only sober person at this point is my girlfriend, who doesn't drink. So she's like trying to corral 30 pissed up, very obvious potential criminals out. And if we'd stuck to her plan, it'd have all gone fine. But you can imagine what happens. So we go out, it becomes a bit chaotic. And the guy's just standing there and he's literally pointing at the biggest people in our team. And obviously my girlfriend's got like hold of me. Like if there's one person she's not going to let go to the police, it's me. And then she says, stay there. And she goes to get somebody else. And we're safe and free at this point. And I turn around and I see my friend who got sucker punched, getting put into a police car. And I think it's probably the only honourable thought I've ever had in my life, and probably the wrong time for it. But I thought if he's going to go, down to the police station, I've actually had a crack at this guy, so I better be with him and get myself into trouble. So I walk back, and literally as soon as I turn around, the guy clocks me. He goes, him, get him, whatever the Chinese for him is. So we're in the car, we're looking around. They've got 4 of us. It's the 4 biggest guys in our team. Tall guys, they're the criminals. And they take us to the police station. And to be fair, at this point, we're not arrested or anything. We're just detained. I start trying to film this in the back of the cop car, which is a mistake, and very quickly get told off. And we're thinking like, oh, we're going to be sent off to like the gulag somewhere, and we're trying to everything. And we get to the police station, and they treat us very well. They just say like, don't talk, and they're very strict about the not talking. But we're not like locked up or anything. We're just kind of in the office with the guy who's also sat down in the office. So they take him to the interview room, and they interview him. And that takes about an hour. And you can imagine the dry mouth you have being in a Chinese foreign police office at the end of like 8-9 pints of beer. So the only thing we're allowed to do is ask for water. And then my mate, he's like the team dick, right? And he's huge. He's a huge Canadian guy, 6'4", very wide and muscly. And he's just staring at this guy through the door like this, not blinking, just staring. And then they come out. And my friend who speaks Chinese is like, okay, you're going to interview us. What's the crack? And the policeman goes, well, no, why would I interview you? And we were like, well, don't you need our side of the story? He's like, well, no, that guy's told me everything that's happened. He's like, well, yeah, but he's going to tell you, no, we don't need to interview you. And he's like, all right, well, we still feel pretty confident at this point because we're like, the CCTV will show that he hit first. So like, well, can you get the CCTV? Are you going to watch that? Are you going to review? No, we don't need to watch the CCTV. There's no CCTV. It's like, well, there were cameras in the club, the CCTV. Turns out this guy's a friend of the bar manager as well. So we quickly realized, like, fuck, the opposite. And the thing in China is that the culture there is the police almost their first act is to make a settlement between the aggrieved parties. And then if they can't reach that, that's when they'll prosecute the law. So the policeman comes to us and he just starts shaking us down. He says, look, You guys have attacked this guy. He needs to be paid for his medical bills. He's a victim. You guys are the perpetrators. If you don't give him what he's asking for, we're going to class this as a gang beating. Because if you more than 2 people beating up someone else in China, that's gang beating. And China's got very strict laws against gangs because they cleaned up the whole thing after the communists took power and everything. So that carries like prison sentence, even just for just being in a bar fight. So we were like, shit, what do we do? And then at that time, my girlfriend has managed to argue her way into police. She's Taiwanese, so for as far as they know, she looks Chinese, speaks Chinese. So they start taking her a little bit seriously and realize that maybe they just treat her differently, as you can imagine. So the guy is saying that for us to get out of the police station, and as an example of what it's like, he says, if you don't comply, we're also going to do you for not having your ID on you. And we haven't been searched, we haven't been looked at anything or anything like that. And me and my friend Derek, the big guy, we've just come straight off the plane, right? So we've got our passports. So we just grabbed our passports out and like, what, ID like this? And we was like, but anyway, my girlfriend turned up, and so we were looking at, I think, 200 quid each. This guy wanted from us, and she was in the room with him for maybe 40 minutes, and that's when I started feeling sorry for the guy, because I know I've been in a room with my girlfriend when she's angry for 40 minutes, and that'd be worse than 15 years in a Chinese prison. So it came out with that we had to together pay him 100 quid and apologize to him on the way out. So I thought, happy days. Look, I've had a great night out. I've had a crack at the guy. 25
it's not over. Oh my gosh.
Well, it's pretty much over.
I thought that was the end. And then there was a whole other bit.
Well, you're ruining the punchline now. But I did tell you this is a long story. Yeah, so I thought that's fair enough for me. And then I turned to my mate, who remembers just in there because he's tall, and he's been punched in the back of the head. That was his whole involvement in the fight, and then got put in police car because he's a tall lad. So he's having to pay 25 quid and apologise for the privilege of being smacked in the back of the head. So we one by one apologised to this guy, and we're very British about it. We'd hold his hand like, I am so sorry for what I did. I really hope you're okay, just being as sarcastic as we could. But then to pay him the money, this is the last bit, to pay him the money, my girlfriend has had to get his Alipay details. And Alipay is almost like Apple Pay.
Yeah.
And I don't quite understand it, but she's told me that if you do complain or if you send them dodgy messages or something on Alipay, it then disables their account. So every few months or something, she does this thing which disables his account. So although he got 100 quid from me, he's never been able to access his money again.
So you got the last laugh.
Yeah, we got the last laugh. And if you want to see it in full colour, it's on Don't Tell Tiffany, which is her name. So, that's why you don't tell her things.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm definitely gonna watch after that incredible story. Wow. Yeah. I can't say I've ever been involved in a situation as crazy as that in England, let alone in China.
If you're in China and there's a fight, leave. If you're not involved, just get out of there. I think that's a good life lesson for anywhere in the world, really.
Probably. No, I'm probably a bit small to fight, to be honest. Anyway,
well, to be fair, I was only the second person I've ever punched, so I'm not a fighter myself.
Who was the first?
Oh, well, that's another long story.
All right, well, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for coming on, Tom. It's been really, really interesting and seriously enlightening to chat to you about something that, honestly, we didn't really know much, if anything, about. So, yeah, thank you so much. And
I very much enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll let you get on with your evening. It's obviously must be about 7:30 in Hong Kong now, so probably nearly dinner time.
Yeah, I'm creating a very angry girlfriend as we speak. Because
All right, well, we'll let you go. Thank you so much, mate, and yeah, stay in touch.
all right, thanks very much,
So-
guys.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to today's episode of Much Ado About Rugby. Had some great stories there, learned a bit about Chinese and Hong Kong rugby as well, really good stuff. So if you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe, really helps us out. Next week we should be having a pro player, so fingers crossed on that, and see you then.